We're on.
Hey,
Hello.
Hey there.
that was some inspirational music there.
I know. Get me all
Yeah.
pumped up.
Yeah. Wake up.
Yeah, I know. Feels like a Monday, but it is not a Monday.
Yeah.
You're right. It does feel like the beginning. Well, it's Tuesday.
Yeah. Just coming off Monday. I mean, still
Yeah.
feel its effects.
Yeah. How's everyone doing, though?
I'm
good.
doing well.
Yeah?
I
Yeah.
have my second cup of coffee, so I'm just like, now the day officially starts.
Perfect. Still working on my first.
I forgot to run and grab some more. I knew I was forgetting something. I'll be right back. Bye, everybody.
I mean, I feel like we start every single stream talking about coffee. So is this our tradition now?
I think so. I mean, we are called Crema, right?
I was going to
Sure.
say that.
Which I've been watching some YouTube videos, some channels, and I think what's the guy, Jeremy or James Hoffman. Anyways, he's like a major coffee guy, and the crema is just it's just CO2 bubbles on the top there. Nothing. I mean, it looks pretty. But,
It is
That's
the stuff on top of the espresso, right? Crema, like the
yeah,
people
it's
do the
the
designs and
golden foam kind of on the top.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's our trivia segment.
All right. Well, let's move on to the real segment here. So first, a little about Crema. For those of you that might be new here, Crema is a digital product agency helping individuals and companies thrive through creativity, technology, and culture. So at Crema here, we use TypeScript as a whole dev team for all of our JavaScript kind of front-end web projects, both client, internal projects. Doesn't matter. We use it for everything. We love it. We've been having a lot of conversations about it. There's a lot to it. If you missed the stream we did last time, we talked about kind of the basics of TypeScript and maybe how it compares to JavaScript and some ways to get into it. So this time, we're going to roll up our sleeves, do some live coding with TypeScript and React, and I guess we'll see where this goes. It's live coding, so it's always an adventure.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
I know.
what could possibly go wrong?
If you have any questions or comments, just drop them in the comment section, and we'll try and get to them. But yeah, but first, let's introduce everyone. I'm Blake. I'm a senior application developer here at Crema. We have Rob.
Hi there. I'm one of the lead architects here.
And then we have Lex.
Hello. I am an application developer here.
Awesome. Well, guess we're ready to go. Let's get started.
All right. To the computer.
Oh, smooth.
Oh, we needed the Batman transition
Yeah.
music.
Well, I think you were doing it. That was great.
Just need
Let's
to
go.
soundboard that.
Rewind a little bit.
Yeah. We'll have more effects as we keep doing these.
That's right.
We'll get a soundboard going too.
Oh my goodness.
All right. So yeah, I guess first we can set a little context for what we have here. So we have Visual Studio Code as our editor. We've got a terminal there because we're going to have to run some processes that maybe are hopefully already running. And we also have Storybook running too. So Storybook is is really cool. Did someone want to explain Storybook?
Yeah, I can jump in. So Storybook is a tool that we use. It's a visualization tool that we use to basically abstract our components that we make and have it set up so that we can actually look at each individual component without having to run through the entire application. So if we had I don't know, form within a larger application, we can just load up that form, edit how it looks, edit the buttons or whatever, without having to run the entire app, go through the entire flow each time we want to see that particular component. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And then a little bit about the code base. We're starting from a template that we use here at Crema called App Web that we created. It's have a same starting point for React front-end projects. It has a lot of our kind of opinions baked in. TypeScript, we've got ESLint and Prettier for formatters. We've got stuff like Storybook and Cypress already set up and visual regression testing. So it's a good starting point for us to use. It's also public. Anyone could use it. So you could just go to the Crema Lab organization and then find the app web repo. When it comes to TypeScript settings, we start pretty strict with strict mode on, and we also have the few extra rules: no implicit returns, no unused locals, no unused parameters. Yeah, we like to start strict because it's easier to do it from the start, and you get the most benefits from TypeScript when it's on strict mode. Cool. So I think that's enough context. Why don't we just jump in and start live coding? I think we're going to just see what we can build and see where we go and explore TypeScript along the way.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have included in our Crema app web repo here is we're using HiGen to generate various pieces of the project, like components or utilities, or generating new types. So we're going to go ahead and use that. So okay, so that will run the generator. It asks you some questions. What's the component name? I think we all agreed we're going to just kind of build a list component and use that as our starting point. So,
Classic.
Every app lists something, right?
Yeah. So we'll call it list. Do you want it to generate with example code or no? We'll just say no. All right. So you can see that's added a directory for list here in our components directory, along with an index file. That is where the actual module will live. We also generate a README file that kind of gives you some context. It's really helpful when you're on GitHub and you can actually see that README document displayed to you. We do visual testing, so oftentimes there'll be an actual image that can be displayed on GitHub specifically. It's really helpful. We also have stories. This is where the stories for Storybook are written. And we also generate a test file here. We're actually going to delete this file because we're not going to be doing testing today on this component. I think that would be a great topic to cover in the future. But just to reduce some of the friction, today we're gonna forget about that. So we've got a list component, and if you're familiar with React, this is a React component. A React component can be defined using just a plain old function. And that really is the normal way to define React components these days. We can see we're returning some funny looking characters here. These are just fragment. This is a syntax for returning a fragment element, which is just basically nothing in React. So it will render no DOM. So we'll be getting rid of that here soon. So yeah, where should we start?
Let's just let's get something on the screen. Let's get it printing something.
All right, and you can see we actually already have a story for this list component over here. It's totally blank. If I were to just return a string, see it's here. Awesome. Well, our job's done. All right. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Hi, folks.
Now let's go ahead and create an actual list component. So we'll do an unordered list and see how far we can go. So we've got our, I don't know why it's adding that extra. I think it's our live. We're using live share in VS Code right now. So there may be some slight oddities that normally don't occur when you don't have other people in a file. So bear with us. So we're going to have person one. We'll just create, we'll just hard code it for now. Okay, so we've got our list of persons, people.
People list.
Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of a great way to start, just kind of get something on the screen. But of course, this is a pretty useless component at the moment. It's not very dynamic. So we want to pass in props. And if you're familiar with React, you know that that is the first argument to, or parameter to this function. And so already we see TypeScript TypeScript is complaining at us because it's saying props has a type of any. Can somebody describe what the any type represents in TypeScript?
Yeah, I mean, any is it's kind of what it sounds like. Anything is an any, and any can be anything. So it's kind of a wild card for types. It is both assignable to anything, and anything is assignable to it. So it's used as a kind of a placeholder if you want to opt out of the type system. And we, with all our strict mode rules, we kind of disallow the use of any. And so we have TypeScript complaining at us.
Yeah. So no implicit any is one of the rules that we have. And so that's why it's yelling at us here. So our first step is actually going to delve into the type world. And so let's define props as a type. Okay. We can go ahead and assign it here. This is how you annotate a value. Now it's just yelling at us because we're not using it. But we want to have some kind of data as a property. So we'll just say data because, I mean, if we can think of a better term, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then we need to define what data is. I'll go ahead and actually define this out here. And I'll call it data. Data.
Data.
Data. Well, that looks really weird. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. Live coding. That's great. So we'll just say it's a string array. Okay. Cool. And then we'll actually annotate our data property. And let's go ahead and use it. So instead of doing this, we're going to map out our... Actually, let's destructure props. So we'll destructure it. So we can see TypeScript is telling us that we actually have this data property available to us in this interface. So we'll go ahead and data.map. And for each item, we're going to return a li with the... Why does it do that? That's really annoying. Okay. And then we interpolate the item itself. It's a string, so that's valid. Okay, so we're getting an error here. Cannot map property of undefined. And actually, if we go over to Storybook, we're going to see there is an actual type error here, and it's yelling at us because data is missing from props. And so we're going to go ahead and add that. Okay, person 1, person 2, person 3. Should be roughly back to where we were. Cool. Well, that's kind of the basics here. What else? I guess what would be some other stuff we'd want to incorporate into something like this?
Well, also I wanted to point out that because we type this as a string now, if we try to put in a number or
yeah, so if we try to pass a number here, of course we've got the prettier formatting stuff. That's what's happening with formats, but it's going to yell at us here. It's going to say, hey, number is not assignable to type string because we've said that data is an array of strings, not number. Now we could definitely express a string or a number array.
Right.
Now it's not going to yell at us, and because we know a number is stringified when it gets plopped out as a value in React, it works, you know. So TypeScript still has to allow for what is valid in JavaScript. So you're able to do these non-homogeneous arrays, which might be a pattern you wouldn't normally see. And honestly, I would try to stay away from it because that's just introducing complexity. But sometimes you need to express that, and you're able to. So yeah, very good point.
Cool.
So I think. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
I was just say, what if we made this a little prettier? What if we introduced some styling to this?
I mean, I guess I don't know why you hate my design skills, Blake. But yeah.
So I can jump in here and try to work on that.
Yeah, let's say we don't have a designer on this project, and we're just like, we want it to at least look kind of good.
A little bit presentable.
Yeah.
So another tool that we use is Material UI. And Material UI is just styled components. They have just a whole list of different components, buttons, list components, cards, etc., that are already pretty nicely styled. You can also even customize them yourself. And it's just a really, really great way to jump in and plug in your style components. And I'm going to jump over to Material UI on my side and see. Yeah, Rob, if you could pull that up.
Sure.
Right. So Material UI is awesome because it has so many different options for customizing and whatnot. But because of that, it has a ton of props, right? But it has great TypeScript support, which means that kind of as you're using a component, like, what props does this have, or what options does this prop take? You can kind of let TypeScript guide you through what is valid and what's not valid, and let autocomplete kind of help you out there. So it's a really nice experience to use Material UI on a TypeScript project.
Yeah, honestly, autocomplete is great because you can, pick up some of these components and kind of work your way through them without having to actually have to read through all the documentation. You can just hit the dot and see what kind of properties are available to you and kind of find your way through there. So it makes it a lot easier to just jump in and use the tool. Okay, cool. So I was thinking that we do a nice little list and perhaps an icon of sorts. I think that would impress.
Yeah, maybe like
people.
A little
people like
silhouette
icons.
of a person. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and pull in.
Now, the importing here might get kind of funny because this is on my computer, so I might have to jump in and help.
Oh, yeah.
What do you want to import?
Can you import the list?
Yeah.
And...
Oh, okay. Well, we already have a little challenge. We've called this component list. So...
yes. We can rename it to let's see.
MUI list?
MUI?
Just to distinguish it from ours. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Uh-oh. We just have an extra in. There we go. Extra U. Uh-oh. I think we're having I think there's some live share / live coding fun happening right now.
Okay, and then what we need the items can do, right? Is we can get these list items.
Okay. I'll go ahead and import that up top.
Yeah, I will write that here.
Sweet. I'm going to go ahead and save that.
Okay.
Any errors? Let's see what we got over here.
Yeah.
Okay. So we see that starting to add spacing and various properties that you would associate with more of a design system.
Wonderful.
And I think there's even, dense. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, there is a dense.
Oh, yeah, okay.
See, there, you can just type it in. And...
Yeah. So it's just I believe it's just a Boolean property. If I hover over it, it will tell me that dense is an optional property, and it's a Boolean property, right? So we don't have to pass true because it is present. That's the way they're interpreting that. It's truthy. So
awesome. So yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and put a icon in here.
All right, I gotta pull that in from somewhere else, don't I?
I'm thinking this list could be of people.
Okay.
So we can do like a person icon and
Okay, I think I've got it. I'm just not using
And let's see. Perfect. So I'll grab that.
I
Oh, and we
the
also need
icon.
the list icon, list item icon. Yep.
Oh, sorry. This is it's hazardous. Here, let me save where we're at. List item icon. It's like it does it for as many people are as in the session.
It just really wants to close that tag. Yeah.
I wonder if it's taking everything that's in our like clipboard. If we have something copied or paste,
Maybe.
and it's just.
Oh, and then list item text, I guess, is the next.
Yeah. Yep, that's the next thing. So right now we are just throwing the text within the list item tag, the parent tag, but there's also list item text.
Okay, I'll just paste it down here.
Yeah.
Because it will do it 3 times. Okay. I'll just move this up. Cool. Let Prettier do its thing. Cool. What's this complaining about? Oh, I'm doing it from core. It should be icons.
Yeah, I think it's icons.
It's weird. I copied that import from the docs. I feel misled. Oh, they must be.
They lied.
There we go. No errors. We're good. Let's see what we've got. Oh, we did it. So doesn't this list item text also have like primary, secondary properties? Let's see. Yeah, okay, primary. So we could just pass the item to that. We could not even do a closing. We could do like a self-closing tag if I could select the name of line. There we go. Oops. Oh, that's right. Okay.
What if we just do like secondary of like
just some static text for now.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Look at that.
It's coming together. All right. Where do we want to go from here?
Yeah.
Well,
usually we have to click on something, right?
Yeah. So, oh, I see what you mean. If we want to click and let's say if this was like a list of like a directory or something and we want to know more about said person. So a thing that we could do is come in here and let's see. I can see. Console log this real quick to see. And so normally, and you may not see it when I'm typing in because I'm sharing on Rob's session, but typically when you're working with TypeScript, you can just go in these tags, and you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe there's an on-click or a parameter, or maybe there's a certain styling parameter. You can start typing this stuff in, and there will be like there's the autocomplete function that will pull all of this in for you. It's just like a sense of security there, particularly with me and my endless amount of spelling errors.
Let's see what it yells at us about here. So, okay, it's not there. Yeah. So sometimes it can be helpful and be like, did you mean this?
It's missing it.
Yeah. But it's not going to let you accidentally pass an invalid prompt like that. So it's one of the advantages. Cool. So we want to actually expose this though as so the user of this component. So say from our story perspective, where we're actually rendering this, We want to be able to allow each use case to be able to pass in an on-click handler, right? So I think I love to be able to think at the type level when designing these external APIs for a component. So each property that this exposes to the user is considered this component's API. So let's see. So we want to provide an on-click.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the way you define that here, let's see. The function, so this is function definition in TypeScript. It looks just like a Lambda function. And we want to say it's going to take, it's going to get the item passed to it. And so we can just do data's an array. So we can just put number here as a placeholder. And now it knows that item is a string because one of these items in the index of our data array is a string. So that's kind of a dynamic way to kind of link those together. If I come in here, I know that this isn't just a string. This is specifically an item in that data array. So more of a communication tool than anything else. So now if we go over to stories, we see there's an error. It's saying, well, onClick is missing in the type. Okay, cool. Well, we don't always want to have to pass an onClick. So what we're going to do is define this as an optional property. And we do that using the question mark preceding that colon there in our interface. So now if we go back over here, it's not going to yell at us once the TypeScript catches up. There we go. See, it's gone. We're valid again. But if we want to pass it, if I hit Control Spacebar, onClick is one of those primary attributes that we can add. So, I'm going to go ahead and add that. And we'll just do kind of mimic what you had internally, which is just a function, and console log the item, and I'm going to grab the item from the params here. Hit save so Prettier can be happy again. Formatter code. And we see here that TypeScript is telling us it knows exactly what this item parameter is required to be on this onClick function that we pass it. All right, so let's go ahead and use it.
Yeah, got to use the prop. So I guess first, grab it off the props there. We can see that it's optional, right? It's saying, okay, well, we're not using it.
Yeah.
So first, let's just let's do this to be a little naive. Like, okay, it's an onClick. I could probably pass it to onClick.
Yeah. Let's see.
Ooh, there's a type error. What does it say there?
So again, it's saying no overloaded matches. No overload matches this call. OnClick is an overloaded definition, meaning it can have a lot of different shapes, but none of those shapes fits the shape that we passed it. Our onClick defined here, this shape is completely incompatible with this shape. And the reason is, and it tells us here, is that mouse event of HTML div element or mouse event is not assignable to type string. So we're saying that our item here is going to be a string. And so when we pass onClick here, it's saying, give me a string. But really what's happening, if we were to kind of explode this a little bit, the function, when it's called inside onClick, is actually passed an event object. And so that's what we're attempting to pass to the onClick. And so
of course, an event is not an item, right? Like,
it's not a string. It's a complex object with a totally different shape. It's just not the same thing. So we don't really care about the event. We just care about the item clicked. So we don't have to actually access that parameter. And we can then kind of do an inline function here that circumvents that. And this should be happy once we're...
Well, there's one thing we forgot, right? We said onClick was optional, right? You can't,
right.
call undefined as a function. I'm sure anyone who's ever used JavaScript has seen that error, undefined is not a function. Right?
Yeah, so TypeScript's keeping us from doing something. And you can see I didn't even remember what the problem was, but it's not going to let it compile. If this were your application, like it wouldn't build your React application, right? It would say, hey, there's this type error, fix it. You cannot invoke an object which is possibly undefined. Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there's a nifty little syntax for that, right?
Yeah, that's great because that's such an easy problem to forget, and TypeScript's just helping you out there. So there's a ton of ways to fix this problem. I think for me, the easiest way is just to use the new syntax for optional chaining. Basically, all it means is it's only going to call that function if it's not undefined there. So that gets rid of the error.
Yeah. And I also want to point out that, especially when you're first getting into TypeScript, the errors that TypeScript spits out can be a bit overwhelming. It's this whole chain of everything drilling down. But some good advice, I think Blake mentioned this in one of our chats, to just, when you're troubleshooting this, to just go straight to the bottom. Start at the bottom and then work your way up the chain of errors. Yeah. And
so you're saying in this example, when we have this gnarly error, which should reemerge in just a moment. Okay. This can be kind of overwhelming, right? And you were saying what? Go to the bottom. What
does all of this mean? And this is really common. You're going to see stuff like this, especially when you're pulling packages from other libraries and stuff. You're going to see like the type errors that you're going to see when you're pulling from other libraries and packages are going to be like this, versus maybe some of the type errors you have in your own code, right? So
because they're a little more dynamic, right? They're covering wider use cases, which means it's more complicated code, more complicated error messages. So yeah, definitely drilling to the bottom and kind of seeing like, okay, is there anything that even rings true or that seems familiar about what it's telling me? And it's like, oh, you can't pass, something's not compatible with string. That means that somehow I am trying to put something in a string sized hole that is not, that's not going to fit, right? So it's all, those kids like that game where you like put the triangle in a triangle hole. Not a game. It's, a baby toy. That's one thing.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Keep going.
Everyone,
And I mean, when you're writing JavaScript without it, sometimes you only realize you've done that once you've shipped your code.
Yeah.
And that's not fun.
Yeah. But yeah, let's move on. Let's make this a little more production ready, right? So data is probably gonna be more than just a string, right? I imagine we're shown a list of people here. So
do we want to generate a new type?
Yeah, let's make a type. Let's make a user type that's gonna maybe represent kind of more realistic data here. Let's use it.
Okay. So we'll go again, run new type, another generator that we have. So what we want to call this user, I assume?
Yeah, let's just call it user.
Okay. All right. So it just spit out a new file here in the types directory called user, and it's yelling at us because we're not doing anything useful with it, and that's okay.
Let's do something useful with it. All right, so think of user. We got some normal stuff. Maybe we got like we'll just do name. Say it's a string. Maybe we'll do email's a string. I don't know. We'll stop there. But think typical user properties here. And maybe we'll add a good description. This is our user type from our API. I don't know. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I like it. It's a nice, simple user.
Yeah, nice, simple user. It's already being exported, so we should be able to import it wherever we want. So let's go back into our list component we've made. Right. So right now we've got data is just a string array. But let's make it an array of users. And so what if I just type out user? And then I can see we want to auto import that. Intent, Rob.
User import from a few levels up. Seems legit.
Cool. So now we've changed our data to an array of users. Is everything going to work? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see.
I mean, I'm seeing errors here. That's kind of the obvious ones, but there's even errors in our implementation as well.
Yeah. So why don't let's start at the let's start at the data. Let's pass some fake user data to this story.
Okay. Who wants to type out some users?
I'll do it.
Okay.
So we'll just make some data here. And we'll say it's going to be a user array. If someone wants to import that for me.
Yep.
I will start working on that. So I said name. We'll go Blake.
So at this point, you've totally forgotten what the next. Oh, never mind.
Yes, let's go back.
Say you've forgotten like what the shape of this thing is. You could hit again, Control Spacebar. Email.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah, that's the property I forgot.
Continue on. Yeah.
And then we'll do I don't know, Blake at example.com. And then we need to use this data. And we should be able to just pass it in here. Cool. So now we'll let the formatter do its thing. We'll see that this is no longer complaining. We're probably going to see some errors in Storybook. That's fine because we still have type errors we need to fix in the component definition itself.
Yeah. So whether or not we are running Storybook right now, in our editor, we are being warned that there is an actual type error that would actually boil down to a real error in this case.
And it has, if you see in Storybook, it is a real error. All right, so first error here, we got key. So whenever you're mapping over data and putting out a list of nodes in React, you got to give them a key so React can keep track of them. But that key needs to be kind of a permanent value, so string or number, right? So right now we're giving it the user object, which is it's not a valid key.
Which why don't we go ahead and should we? I'm going to rename this.
Yeah, go for it. And yeah, if you notice that he used the rename symbol, which is really cool, right? So we'll find all instances of that data and rename it at the same time. And so VS Code is using TypeScript under the hood to figure that out.
Well, and actually, if I'd done it, I'm going to undo that and do it at this level. That probably would have been smarter. No, that would be it, actually. User. I tried to rename this smartly, so I will. Well, I overcomplicated that, didn't I? I'm going to undo this because that didn't actually make any sense. Now that I think about it, data is still just our array. Apologies, everyone.
Yeah, you can still.
We'll brain fart.
All right.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. We got some live code. We can do it.
Yeah. But anyways, TypeScript does allow you to do some better refactoring.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep that item too. Yeah. So
sorry, I'm not doing it.
We'll say item.name because we know name is a string here, and so that should satisfy TypeScript there. And we'll just also go ahead and say that the primary is the name as well.
And we can do the secondary. Have that as the email.
Yeah, let's do it. And there we see it. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's working.
Let's get a couple more items in there to make this look fun.
Oh, my.
There we go.
Go team.
Cool.
Neat. Well, I see no issues with this completely generic list component rendering users all the time.
Yeah, let's explore actually one more thing. If we go into the stories, right, you'll hover over the on-click the item. You'll see that it's already assigned that to user automatically because of how we set up the types there. So that's really awesome. If we were doing some more complex, like logging some analytics or something, like we would have got errors if we were using stuff incorrectly. Right now we're just console logging, so we can console log an object in JavaScript just fine. But yeah, so right there, it kind of everywhere in the code would have updated if we were doing anything incorrectly.
Yep. So
take it one more level further.
I think so. I mean, one of the problems I'm seeing here is that we've got this really generic sounding list component. And we're listing users specifically. So what if I wanted to list products or any other data type kind of in my domain, my business domain? Could I reuse this? And like, how would I actually describe that with TypeScript?
Well,
Answer
thankfully,
is yes.
yes. Thankfully, TypeScript has a feature called generics, very helpfully named.
Yes.
Is what we're trying to get at. Yeah, who wants to do that one?
I mean, we can kind of tackle it together.
Tackle it together.
Yeah.
So first, I guess let's talk over what we're trying to get at. This user here is what we want to be generic, right? We don't want to hard code it to be user. So let's start from here and let's make data generic so that we can plop in some generic value here, right? So this is the syntax for doing generics in TypeScript, right? You do kind of the angle bracket and you give the generic type some name, right? It could be anything, just like a function parameter. You can call it whatever you want. You can call this type parameter anything you want. And that really is the correlation there. Like generics and types are kind of like function parameters, right? They can make types reusable, let you pass stuff in and move types around.
Yep.
And so then we could just use T here.
So now we don't even really care about user at this point, do we?
Yeah, we can just get rid of it. And so we'll notice now that the errors have moved to the next level, right? So we've said that data needs to take type arguments. We're not passing it any, right? So we need to get a type argument to pass it. So we'll make props generic. We'll say it also takes a T. And I'm just using T. You could use whatever you want. Again, T for type is kind of an okay default. It's really whatever you want, as long as everyone gets it. So we'll pass T here, pass T here. There we go. So those errors are gone. And now we're seeing, okay, well, we made props generic. So now we need to get a generic here.
So it's yelling at us right now saying that props requires one type argument, just like if you were trying to call a function without arguments when it's required. So where do we get that argument?
Well, list is a function.
It's true.
Right? So let's make it generic.
So function definitions or declarations themselves can have type parameters defined. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, and the syntax is similar, right? So you do the angle brackets after the name of the type, just like you do here, right? So we have data T, props T, list T. And so now, basically, inside of this context, we have that generic there to access. And so we can make props generic there, right? And now we've changed the game, right? We've got a generic type. Yeah, and so now we're seeing new errors pop up because we're using like .name and .email, but there's no guarantee that we actually have those properties available. So now we have to go a level of abstraction up and somehow make this list able to get the key and get primary and get secondary and stuff like that generically, right? And so how might we do that?
Well, I think we could pass a function that at the usage kind of context knows what information it's dealing with and can actually map those values to the appropriate underlying kind of needs inside of this implementation. So we know we need to be able to provide a key property. We know we need to map whatever to a primary and a secondary text property. And I mean, so maybe that's, I don't know if we can do that. Do you think we can do that with one function, or do you think it's, how do you typically think of that?
Yeah, I mean, we could make one function that, say, given the generic piece of data, returns an object with a key, primary, secondary. Would that work?
Yeah. So maybe we should define the type of the data we need.
Cool.
Kind of like the bag of properties that we need to provide.
Yeah. Call it item, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, item. You're a wizard. Okay, so we got our key, which is going to be a string.
We'll just say it's a string.
We'll just say it's a string. It's probably, it could be more than that. Primary string, secondary string. Okay, so we've got that type. Now we need a function. Okay, so we need a function that's, what would we call this?
Get item?
Get item.
Retrieve item. Get item.
So I'm going to say this is not optional, because in order for this component to be usable in any way, we need that. And so we're going to take a data T number thingy, right? Oh, thanks. I always forget to do that. Piece of it.
I got you.
Yeah. And we need to return an item.
Cool.
Sound right to everybody?
Looks right to me. So now we got to use it.
Yeah.
So we want to use it in context to each item, not the array. So we're going to be doing that inside each iteration on this map. And so we need to add a function block here. It's probably a fancy way to do this, but I did it. Okay. So we're going to say this is mapped item, maybe. Okay. Yeah. That renaming things helps. So now we can call this item again. So we'll do get item. We'll pass it datum.
Datum.
Datum. Okay. I'm going to hit save and see what's going on. Just because I'm live streaming and stuff, my computer is chugging more than typical. So
cool. So we still have the errors, but that's fine because we kind of changed the properties that we expect here.
Right. So this is going to be key, right? Okay. Because now it knows if I hover over this, it knows that this is of type item. And so that's the only thing that can come back from this function is something of this shape, an object of that shape. So we've got the key.
Got to pass the datum there, the original data there.
All right, call that datum. Yep, so we have that still available to us, and then we'll say this is primary, and this is secondary.
Would it be datum.primary in this case?
Well, actually, we're referencing this item value here now, because we're kind of mapping datum to an item. So yeah, I mean, we are adding some complexity here to kind of understand if you're going to know how this mechanism is working. So I mean, that's the downside of when you go generic, is that things get more complicated, a little less clear. So now we've got errors in our stories. So what's going on here?
Well, there's a function that we got to pass that we're not.
Right. So if we hover over this, it's going to say get item is missing. Get item. Okay. So we hover over list here. We see it's a list of T now. Okay. I have a feeling, based on my experience, that we might see that T go to something more specific in a bit here. So datum is kind of what we're calling that, and it is a user, and we need to construct key. I'm gonna hit save to, oops, pretty hard to do its thing. Okay, so that's going to be the datum dot name.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do I need to return here? Secondary is the next one it's suggesting. That's going to be datum dot email. And
then the primary.
Yeah.
Datum
and you notice that TypeScript is helping him along each step of the way for both what the return value expects and what datum has available to it.
Okay. So if I hover over list now, well, I thought it was going to say user here, but I guess I was wrong. But it does know that our onClick is getting a user.
And actually, I'm curious. I don't know if we actually need this type annotation there. I think it knows that datum is a user. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it does.
And
Yeah.
again, right. So if we look at how we defined list takes a generic, but we're not actually passing a generic to list there when we're using it.
Right.
That's just, again, TypeScript is inferring it based on the type of the data that we're giving it. So it sees that we're passing it data with a user type, and so it goes, oh, I'll grab that and infer that, and infer it everywhere. We could, if we wanted, be really explicit and pass a user there. Right. So now we're being really explicit, but we don't have to do that, right? So maybe this looks good because you can see that we're using it. It is an explicit list of users. So you might want to pass the generic, but you don't have to, right? So that's kind of up to you.
Yeah, where that would be valuable is if you were not giving it information at any other point. So say we didn't have this, and we didn't have this, it no longer knows, it knows the shape of that thing, it's able to infer it, but it doesn't know that that's corresponding to a user explicitly.
So you don't get that, the pretty name where it shows you the type alias
Right.
is called user.
So we'll go back to just the inferred from the data.
Yeah, and we'll see in the storybook that everything is working kind of as we have built it before, but now it's a super generic list. So if we wanted to, we could show a list of folders, we could show a list of houses to buy, we could show a list of cars that you're selling. Like, you could do whatever.
Okay. I like your folder analogy because I know there's an icon for that. Do we want to try to apply this to a new component, or?
Yeah, sure. And actually, and while you're doing that, if anyone has any questions or wants us to roll back on anything, just let us know too.
Okay, so folder. I think name is always a safe bet.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what else a folder would have. Might have folder.
Extension, maybe like extension. I don't know. If you're like
a
dynamic.
file.
Or
Can
file.
we do this?
Yeah, file.
Images.
Ooh, hierarchical data. There we go.
Hierarchical data. So, yeah.
Maybe like date created, make it a string.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
So let's make another. Yeah, let's make another story that shows a list of folders instead of a list of users.
So this is our, let's see, it gets the name from this. So this would be list of users. Oops. Forget I'm, file name there. Of users. There we go. So it should change our name here. List of users. Cool. So I'm going to cheat by copying that down. Say list of folders. This time I don't have data available to me yet, so I'm going to say I really do want this to be a list of folder. Import that type because I want it to yell at me. I do want it to kind of hold me true here. Let's see. I think it's.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, here we go. So it's yelling at me in a few places. Here it's saying type user array is not assignable to this data of folder, right? So data, again, is an array that's parameterized by some unknown type, but it knows here, based on us passing that parameter or providing that parameter or argument, type argument in this case, that data can't be of type user array. It has to be a data of folder. So basically a folder array. And it's saying exactly what's going on here. User is missing the following properties. Again, that kind of boils down to kind of the duck typing or the structural typing of TypeScript that I think we mentioned last time, which it's saying and that's really a problem, not really because the name is different, because there's properties that I don't have that I need if you want me to treat this as a folder, right? And then we're also getting warnings down here. Email does not exist on type folder. So you can see already how this is helping us walk through a system that we've just defined without making some really easy mistakes.
Yeah, and I'll say also the way you design the system, in this case, the list component, can kind of add to the benefits you get from TypeScript. In this case, because we made list generic like that and didn't just hard code it to one type, now all of a sudden it's pretty easy to copy paste, change out the types, and see everywhere that you need to fix all the usages there. And so really learning to lean on TypeScript like when appropriate, because TypeScript is really good at keeping track of that kind of stuff.
That thing? Probably not. 8 dot. Well, let's use TypeScript.
Maybe do like .2 and see what you can create. Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a to string.
Local string? Yeah,
Sure.
Whatever. We'll see. Okay, it's still yelling at me because I haven't provided other things. Let's go to our list of folders and see what's going on. Well, it's trying. JavaScript's saying like, I'll try to do something here. Let's see, folders. That can just be an empty array. Let's see, ID, one, name, pictures. It's not camel case, that's an ESLint rule, not really a TypeScript rule. So I'll just go fix that though to make it happy. All right, what else is let's see. So that's returned.
Yeah.
What
I think we got a folder.
Just catching up. Okay.
Yeah, I was just catching up.
Cool. Let's create another one. We'll just do ID 2.
Cool. And I saw that we had a date created property, so I used that as secondary there.
Sweet.
ID.
We'll key it off the ID. Perfect. There we go.
Okay. So here we've reused the same component to display totally different types of data in a similar way, and and we can do that without a lot of the pitfalls that we normally would run up against if we didn't have a type system sort of reminding us of reality. I think it's really easy to be kind of forget how all these, how the dots are all connected under the hood and the implementation. And it is allowing us to describe a system and then use that system accurately. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's about all the time we have.
Yeah.
Any final comments? I just want to say I love TypeScript because it's so cool to just be able to swap out types like that and have it help you along.
Same. It really helps you model your system kind of in an abstract way, and then build code that actually works within that system. So
yeah, with generics, you really have to really abstract everything and kind of see it generically.
Yeah. And if you understand,
if
you understand how a function works, if that's not a mystery to you, parameters or parameterized types really are kind of conceptually, you can kind of put them in the same bucket to some degree.
Yeah. I was going to say, when I learned how to use type parameters, there's the same kind of explosion of possibilities that when I first learned how to use functions in JavaScript, right? All of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't have to copy, paste, and reuse code everywhere. You can write a function. Same thing with type parameters. It really unlocks kind of what the type system can give you, just like functions unlocks what the language can give you.
Right. And we didn't get into it, but you can definitely pass multiple parameters. You can define multiple type parameters for a type. You can lock down or constrain a parameter. So say all of our items, say we wanted to always use an ID as the key property instead of some random string that might be available. We could constrain anything we accept to at least have an ID property, which is pretty normal in an actual application, that all your data entities would have an ID key that you could use. So it's still generic as long as you meet that expectation.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, everyone. This is really fun. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our channel. We're going to be putting out more content like this. All right.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Good day.
We did it.
We did it.
My computer didn't crash.